This podcast is brought to you by Reimagine Radio, the online radio station that aims to give you information on disability and music. My name is Graham Wyman, and I'm a program manager with the Disability Foundation. Today on Reimagine Radio's Artist Feature, I am joined by Rachael Ransom. Rachael, welcome to the pod today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, how you doing?
Oh, it's been pretty good, just taking my lunch a little early to do this interview, and it'll be fun. I'm excited.
Nice. Well, why don't we get right into it so we don't take up too much of your time?
Sure.
So when did you start taking an interest in music, and how and if did your family help influence that?
Oh, geez. I was always singing for as long as I can remember. My cousins and I, because I have like 15 first cousins. My mom is one of 8 siblings, so big family on my mom's side. Mm-hmm. And my cousin Renee and I used to put on these little talent shows for the family functions. And like she would dance and I would sing, and that's kind of where that started. But more officially, it was, I remember I went to elementary school in Mississauga because that's where I grew up. Yeah. And they used to make us go outside for recess, even in the winter when it was like snow. And I have never liked the colder months. So I snuck into the I went to the bathroom and I would just kind of hide in there until it was over because I didn't want to go outside. And I was singing one time, and what I didn't know was that the lady that runs our elementary school's choir, Miss Hutchinson, was in the stall with me, and she kind of came out and she was like, "Was that you?" And I was like, "What?" Total kid, not expecting anything. And she's like, "Come with me." And she took me to this room with a piano, and she started playing stuff and asking me to sing along with her. And I did. And then she said, "Do you want to join the choir? You should really join the choir." So I did. And my first ever performance was at 8 years old with, the whole school, and the choir does the Christmas concert. So that was how it started. And I did theater all through high school, and my family was always supportive of whatever I wanted to do musically. They always came to every recital, performance, filmed it all. My dad would have pictures and video recordings, some of which I wish we never had, but that's that's just what being a parent is. And they always encourage creativity.
No, that's great. Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, obviously a very encouraging environment.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So, I mean, I know you as a piano player. When did you start playing piano? And obviously, I was voice was your first instrument, but you transitioned to playing piano. How did that come about?
Yeah, we used to. So because we lived in Mississauga, we would come out here actually for vacations because my grandparents on my dad's side lived out here. Right. Funnily enough, in the house that my parents live in now. And one day when we were on vacation, my grandma was cleaning something up, and she had an old keyboard that was 30 keys. It wasn't a full thing, but it came with a little book. And in the book, it had a few songs, and at the back of it, there was chords and stuff, basic major chords. And, they had pictures, and they would show you the chord and the picture of how to play it. And I was like, huh. So then I just kind of started learning C, D, E, and I was like, oh, I can play this. And then I started looking up, songs that I knew. And I think the first one I played was a Coldplay song or something. And I just looked it up, and I found the wondrous ultimateguitar.com. And they have songs and then the chords above it. So I was able to teach myself basic chords. And eventually my parents put me in, and I was 13 at the time. So we got back to Toronto, Mississauga. And, then when we officially moved, actually I must've been younger because we were on vacation. So I was maybe 10 or so when I actually found that little piano. And then when we moved out here, just before high school, so I was 12, my parents kind of started me in lessons. So I started taking, I did a little bit of voice for probably a couple of years, and then I did piano. And it was always kind of funny because my teacher wanted to, teach me the right way. And like we start at the beginning and we're doing scales and and I'm just like, oh my God, I was probably the worst student because I didn't practice any of that because that was, I was like, no, I want songs because I already had chords.
Yeah.
So I started kind of, just doing whatever I wanted, and she was lovingly trying to get me to do things the right way, and I was just like, that doesn't work for me because my hands, CP also affects my hands, so I had to kind of find a way to make it work. But funnily enough, I've never considered myself a piano player. I plunk. That's what I say. I'm like, I plunk around, make it work. But yeah, it kind of just happened from that tiny little keyboard and a book that showed chords. The pictures really helped and it kind of sparked it.
No, that's great. I mean, hey, everyone starts somewhere. And,
Yeah.
and you kind of touched on the head as well, but I've always identified you as a singer-songwriter. And so you talked about, your choir experience, singing lessons, piano lessons, but when did you start developing your songwriting skills?
Oh boy. I think that was in high school.
Okay.
Because my parents, when they noticed I took an interest in like piano and music, they bought me a Yamaha keyboard.
Okay.
And I was like, I was so jacked about that. I could barely play it, but it was like the best thing ever. And I remember, just realizing that, okay, I can sort of sing and I've learned these chords now. And,
Mhm.
I was that kid that throughout all of high school and I always had my earbuds in. My teachers were always giving me shit. They're like, you can't sit in class listening to music. And I'm like, why not? Like it was always a struggle to get me to like unplug from whatever I was listening to. And I kind of realized that if I could combine chords, then I could write words to go over those chords, like just like a song on the radio.
Mhm.
And I started kind of doing that. And I think my first couple of songs were, one was a cheesy breakup song or unrequited love or something. I think I had a crush on this boy in like grade 8, and he just did not see me that way at all, and it was just killing me inside. So I wrote this song because I had to get it out of my system.
Right.
And then the other one was a little bit more intense. It was about because we had been learning about, how they do like the drug talk in school, like don't do drugs and all that. So
There.
so
Yeah.
for me it was about like, whoa, like what would happen if you got caught up in this world of addiction. And even at like 13 I was kind of like, that's really serious and I want to write a song about it. And I took it so serious. I was sitting in my room after school like writing about, and I'm like, what the heck does a 13-year-old who grew up in such a stable environment know about addiction and things. So I kind of laugh about it now, but I was like, in my head, I was going to write this song and people were going to hear it and they were going to think that I knew what I was talking about. It's like, you're 13, slow down. Like,
Right. Yeah.
so I
That
guess,
kid already at 13, right?
yeah, I guess that would be because I remember inviting my dad into my room after I had written some of these, and I was like, "Okay, Dad, I want to play you something. I've been working on something." He's like, "Okay," and so I played him a couple of things, and he goes, "That's nice, honey. Like, where who sings that?" And I'm like, "No, I did that. I did that." And my dad was like, "Wait, you actually like wrote a song?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And he's like, "Oh, good job." Like he was so taken aback because I would only do like covers before, right? So it kind of like it was that the validation from my parents and the interest in it kind of showed me like, oh wait, I can keep doing this and I'll get better at it hopefully. And then who knows, maybe something will happen with it. So
Right. So, and you kind of touched on this about doing covers, but maybe you could tell our listeners who are some of your influences and maybe how that's kind of translated into your own music and what you write.
oh man, I live in the past. As a kid, my parents were the main culprits of my influences because driving in the car was always an opportunity to have music on. And so, my dad would be dropping me off at summer camp and we'd be listening to Supertramp,
Mhm.
and Zeppelin and Hendrix and like Men at Work and all these like Pink Floyd, I remember being like 8 and he played me Great Gig in the Sky,
Yeah.
and I hated it. I was like, what the hell is this? Like, she's screaming, it doesn't make sense. But then as I got older, of course, I clued in. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And my mom always loved that stuff too, but my mom also loved a lot of the music that you could like dance to, so like Bee Gees. And
Hmm.
so those, like the 70s, 80s, like the older stuff became, and of course the Beatles, um, just became what I loved. And then I found through, I think it must have been my dad, Bob Dylan. And that was later, that was in high school. And it just didn't make sense to me because this guy, he doesn't have the voice that you normally hear
Hmm.
in a
Hmm.
song, but his words were like he was painting pictures with his words. And some of those pictures were kind of disturbing and honest. And, and I know he's problematic and a lot of people don't like him, but as a songwriter, I was like obsessed. And to this day, I'm still obsessed with him. I have as many records as I can get my hands on of his. It's just always become like I always look back to Bob when I'm like, okay, if I get stuck, I'm like, how do you think he did it? And he was a found poet. Like he would go, and a lot of people said that he stole stuff, which, I get and can agree with, but there's nothing new under the sun. And he just kind of wove words together in a way that wasn't done before. And I found that fascinating.
Okay. Yeah, no, and well, hearing some of the names you listed off, obviously your parents and my parents would get along very well. No
Yeah.
case. Yeah. So you kind of touched on this a tiny bit, but when you're writing your own music, what is your process?
It changes. I think for me, it always comes from a place of like, okay, what's my current skill level? And because my piano isn't as strong, like I don't have a lot of capability to, fill it in and make it big. And, it's always very basic. It's always a few chords here and there. I like the jazzy chords, the sevens, F major seven. That's my jam. But it starts with piano. So I'll sit down and I'll start playing things. A lot of times it starts with me just playing covers of songs I like. Like I do a lot of Fleetwood Mac just for fun, David Bowie, and I'll just be playing songs that I like. The other day I played the Peter Frampton song, and then I'll be like, okay, like what chords do I like? And I'll start playing, in keys and things. And once I find four that are kind of work, then I work on like, okay, how can I make this sound a little more thought out? And I start playing with like fun little piano things, a few extra notes here and there. And then eventually the words come. And honestly, it doesn't take me that long to write something. Usually it's a pretty quick, like once I'm in the zone, I kind of go and write it. But things obviously change after the fact more. But the initial thing, I can usually get like a first verse and a chorus in one shot. And then, okay, now I got to see where's this going? What's this about? But it kind of starts more sporadically. And then I'm like, okay, wow, this could actually be something good. Let me just see if I can link these things together and what is my purpose here, what is the meaning, and do the writing thing. It all they say it's creating something from nothing.
Mhm.
And that's why I've always loved writing, is because you start and it's just you and a computer or a piece of paper. For songwriting, I just have a book that I write lyrics in. I try not to use computer because I use computer for every other aspect of my life. So it's nice to step away from that. And
Not plugged
it's
in.
kind of a mess. Like I take it and I scratch things out, and nobody else, if someone picked that up and opened it, they wouldn't know what the hell was going on in there. But to me, it's just my brain being like, oh, that's not good enough, and I'll add this instead. So it's piece by piece, and I have no real process other than sitting down and making the decision to play and see what happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, and again, everyone has their own way, but I love the part you talked about where it is creating something from nothing. And the thing that I love is the recording aspect of it when you actually take something that's an idea and make it tangible.
Yeah. Yeah,
Again,
you build it out, and a lot of times that part takes collaboration, and it's cool. It transforms a thought into, like you said, a tangible thing that you can share with other people.
oh, for sure. So, when did you start performing your own live music?
That was actually recently, like a few years ago. Aside from the when I was in lessons, like you do like little recitals, and I would always just, do covers for those things. It wasn't until I think I'm trying to remember because it was the same night that I met Dave,
Okay.
um, the fabulous drummer, at the gathering place.
Oh,
And I had been working with Kickstart, just writing blogs, I think at that point. I don't think I was a board member for them yet.
mhm.
And, somebody said, "Oh, we need someone to play. Like, do you know anybody?" And I was like, "Well, I kind of play a little," and I kind of showed um my stuff, and I had a few things recorded on my phone, and I kind of showed somebody, and they're, "Oh yeah, yeah, you should totally come. We'll do it." And I was like, "Wait, like I'm actually gonna get paid for this? Like that's crazy." So I showed up and I did um a couple of covers and a couple of originals. Like I think it was like a 4-song set. And I think I did, trying to remember, I did Heroes by David Bowie. I did New York State of Mind. I did a Billy Joel song, and then I did two of mine. And Dave was there, and I had seen him play with Jim
Right.
before I went on, and Jim had that huge, like I think it was like some sort of Hawaiian guitar,
I,
like it
yeah.
was that really big one, and I forget what it's called, but I just thought they were amazing. And after the show, I went up to Dave and I said, "Oh my God, like you guys were awesome." And he said, "You got a good voice." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." Like it was the first time that, like, somebody I didn't know that wasn't a mom of someone that saw the recital. You know what I mean? Like it was
Right.
more of a professional setting.
Mhm.
And he said, "Oh my gosh, you have to meet Graham." And that's kind of how I met you, was through Dave getting us together that one day at your jam space. So it all kind of started a couple of years ago with doing that one gig in the gathering place. That was the first one.
Yeah, no, meant to be, obviously.
Yeah.
No, that's great. So, continuing on the performance kind of train of thought, last year you played with Mark Ash during our first Strong Act session of 2021. What was that experience like?
Oh my God, that was so much fun. It was a big learning curve for me though, because I I struggle classifying myself as a musician in general just because, I don't have the background, and I don't want to say training because there's lots of people that are self-taught that are like, professionals, but
Mhm.
music was never something that I did at a professional level a lot. So
Right.
coming in there with Mark, who's an amazing person to work with, having you and Bryden and Dave, like all you guys know what you're doing and know how to play. And then, it hit me like, oh my goodness, I'm getting paid to be a singer here. Like, this isn't my material. It was Mark's songs that he had asked me to learn ahead of time. And that was new for me because I'm always used to just showing up, doing my own thing, and leaving. Like, this was more like I had to prepare more because they weren't my songs and I was being paid to be a singer there. So, especially there was one song called For Your Love that
Mhm.
had a rap in it.
Yeah,
And
remember.
Mark had asked me to do that particular song. So I messaged him, I remember, and I said, "Mark, like, are we doing the rap?" And he's like, "If you don't want to do it, don't worry about it. Like, no worries. We can figure something out." And he was so supportive. And I just thought, like, you know what? Like, he asked me to do this. So I'm going to go all out. I'm going to learn the rap and we're just going to see how it goes. And I got to work with Mia, who is amazing. And she, like, I'd never worked with like another singer like that before. And it was crazy for me because it was like 2 days. We did a rehearsal where we spent like the afternoon jamming it out and playing it out. And then the next day, or, a couple days later, it was being recorded. And I had never had an experience where I was actually paid to sing someone else's work. So to me, I felt like a little bit inexperienced because I was like, oh goodness, I want this to be good. Because someone has trusted me with not only like singing their material, but like to be here with all these other musicians. And I just wanted to, make sure that he felt his songs were represented well. Like that was a big thing because, when you have your own stuff and you give it to somebody else, that's you're trusting that person with your work. And I think it's a big part of the collaboration there, is just working together to figure out what works and what doesn't. I mean, Mia and I were able to do some cool harmonies, which was fun, um, and unexpected because like there were some of those that weren't in the original piece, and we checked with Mark and he loved it. So it was cool for me because I'm not used to collaborating, number one. And that was a huge learning curve because I'm used to just being by myself. And two, I'm not used to, being hired to be a singer because to be honest, Graham, I never thought that I've had like that much of a voice. Like I'm okay. I can sing in a few keys. I have a certain limited range that I can sing in. I know what keys I like. I know what works for my voice. I'm not like, those Disney singers that can, hit those crazy notes and do those runs. And like I come from a background of sitting at home just singing in the shower and singing for myself. So it was a big honor to be like invited as an actual singer when I've never felt that I was, you know, professionally there. You know what I mean?
Well, no, and I mean you definitely rose to the occasion, and then no, that was a great experience, and no, and I'm glad it was a learning experience for you. But no, you killed it.
Yeah, it was huge. And you guys, of course, on the engineering side, like that's tough, and it's a tight turnaround because we hadn't rehearsed together before until that only day of rehearsal that we had. So everybody kind of had to show up prepared and you know at least ready to try and see. And I think you guys both, Bryden too, he was awesome there, adjusting us as we went and doing audio magic that I've no idea what he was doing over there, but it worked really well. And
Mhm.
like, yeah, it was a really fun couple of days. I loved it.
Yeah, no, it certainly was. Well, yeah, no, it was a very fun experience. Um, so Rachel, one last question before we take off here, but where can our listeners find your music?
I do have a YouTube channel right now that's under my name. It's just if you YouTube Rachael Ransom, you should find it. I haven't posted in a long while because we're in the middle of a pandemic and I've been working, but I'm hoping to post new stuff soon. Because as I said, for October, I'm trying to have a few pieces ready to go that are new. So it's a little out of date, but it's there for sure.
Great. No, we'll put a tag in the link in our description so our listeners can find your music there for
Oh,
sure.
okay, awesome.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, I just wanted to thank you so much for being on the artist feature today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was super fun.
Yeah. No, and you take care, eh?
You too. We'll talk soon.
All right. And to all our listeners out there, stay safe and keep that music flowing.